Detective Comics 1048. Mariko Tamaki writing with Ivan Reese on the art. Second part of the Tower. And we're using this format where we can kind of jump around, and this one doesn't jump around too much. We get obviously a flashback to this throws a wrench into some theories about the backup from last issue about who the kid might be. We thought, oh, maybe it's this Ware fellow, but it's of course not, because we get his actual.
Very similar.
Wow.
No, well,
that was not a theory last issue.
That was one of the theories.
It was what's his name, Nero. We thought maybe.
Yeah, we thought it was Nero.
Oh, okay. All right, fair enough.
The red hair.
Well, well, so maybe that's still right. But regardless, we get a flashback to Kid Ware.
Ware's origin's not that much different than Nero's, so that might be important later.
Oh yeah, sure. They may relate to each other and bond and whatnot. So we get a little bit of that. But then the rest of the issue takes place on, I think it was day 12, and it's Kate infiltrating in a job interview and trying to get close to Ware, and just some of the planning going on. It reveals that they've got a new base in the sewer system near the tower that's close by. So yeah, I think this is a smart. Obviously, doesn't really answer kind of the cliffhangers from the end of issue 1. Well, you know what I mean, part 1. And I think that's okay. I think it makes sense to me that that's kind of your tease for the big tension and the Die Hard part of the story, but then we go back and really set up some more of the context for it. I think from a pacing perspective, and again, it works better because it's weekly, but if I'm thinking of this as a movie, like, this feels right to cut back and, like, sort of set this stuff up here.
It does, and it makes me assume as well at this point that we're going to move quite significantly past that point next month, or at least in general. I think most of this, this month, so this issue, obviously next issue, will be kind of before the events of day, was it like 27?
Something like that, yeah.
And then 1050 being the oversized issue, and because this part is officially called Shadows of the Bat, so it has its own name for this part. So I think that'll deal with that and move past that, and then February's issues will be kind of have its own, like, okay, this is what we're building to that month.
Yeah. So we get the idea that Ware's mother was psychotic and lashed out violently, and ultimately it happened a couple of times, so that's why he was kind of given to the system instead. And we see that it's actually later on, I think we see that he runs away with the lady's
to the end
card, and he's like,
get some pizza with his mate.
Yeah, and he calls it Za, which means that I officially hate his guts and want him to die a violent death, quite frankly.
It really shows he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he already did die a violent death.
So we think.
Yeah, well, allegedly. Allegedly. All I'm saying is you either die a hero or live long enough to say the word Za.
Yeah. When does that become a thing? Like, why is that a thing?
Because people are terrible.
I don't know.
Yes.
Somehow, I don't know why, but somehow, some way, I'm going to prove it's Zack Snyder's fault. Anyway, so yeah, we get to day 12, and what I liked about this is because it's a comic book and you don't recognize actors. You don't necessarily know for sure when it's someone if they don't have their costume on, right? So there's sort of a minute, I'm like, obviously the red hair's there, but it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is a new character he's interviewing. But then, of course, it's like on the next page, you get the little earpiece and it's like Oracle's talking to her, and it's like, it's Kate, she's infiltrating. This is all a ruse. So
they're putting a lot of resources into Arkham Tower.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Because we know from later on that they've got multiple people who have infiltrated. Right. Kate's infiltrating as a potential doctor, and she gets a tour. I mean, that's basically the main story of this issue. She's getting a tour around the building and being shown the ward and all the rest of it. Yeah,
and we see these like Anavulsion pops back up.
Freezes
down. There's another one. Yeah,
it's the basement. That's one of the key things is that for whatever reason that became the most secure ward. But they're all roaming around freely, and Mr. Freeze, the only thing Mr. Freeze gets, and heated, not the right word here for multiple reasons, but the only thing he gets kind of heated about is that they're keeping him from his tea. He wants to go have some tea.
It was a nice coffee, wasn't it?
Oh, iced coffee, sorry, yes. I got the beverage slightly wrong. Forgive me.
Matt will not forgive you for that.
No, because they're not the same. And I think I need more coffee now.
Oh dear. I think what I really liked about this, as they're talking about like Mr. Freeze's past and like, oh, he's trying to destroy the city multiple times. There's a great full page spread there. But I love the inserts of panels with like villainous Freeze like in between like this really docile, like friendly like Mr. Freeze, who's like you know, just smiling at them. Like you've got that one panel where he's gritting his teeth and he's like all angry and evil looking. But it's like right in between these just like pleasant, and it's this idea like how surreal and creepy this must be. Like it's funny, like y'all. I maybe I compared part of it to The Shining last time, but there is almost like a Shining vibe to this.
You definitely did.
Yeah, I think it's because of the elevator stuff. I think this is a different part of The Shining. It's making me think of though. This is making me think of like Jack running into the ghosts and stuff. And obviously he's not a ghost in this case, but the same kind of vibe where he's being friendly, but he's actually this violent character who's got this dark past who might snap at any time.
Right.
Or is he cured?
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say probably not.
I might agree with that, yeah.
So probably not. Interestingly here, because the interest of character here, they never actually say who she is exactly, but we see what looks like Harley, and she's on the cover as well. That's the cover of the issue. But we see like a Harley Quinn inside like a padded cell, and she's allowed to leave, but she insists on staying and sort of like playing out the role of like the crazy Harley Quinn. And he just says she thinks she's Harley Quinn, and immediately I'm like, oh, this is interesting. So who is it then?
I don't believe it's anyone that matters necessarily.
Well, I'm thinking we're kind of getting the. I don't know if we're gonna do like an imposter Harley.
No, when I say who is it, I'm not saying that because I think it's someone we're going to recognize that's going to be revealed later. I don't mean that. If I don't really want it to be that.
It sounded like.
When I say who is it, then I just mean okay. So we're going to explore who this new character is that is now impersonating Harley Quinn. Like she will be a character of some kind, in and of herself.
Maybe honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she's just there just for the bit of like, oh look at some of the weirdos that we've got in here.
Well, but it seems like she's more important though, because you know they talk about she blew up a food court, no injuries. It was quite the show. And when she talks about it, you know, it cuts to her dialogue in that moment at the food court, and she just says, "I'm Harley Quinn. I'm 2 bananas and a bunny. Come and get me. I'm gonna kill all these guys and then 3 more." And it just seems like, why put that in there? You know, to show.
Because you know, it says, there's some of the patients seem like they want to be caught.
Well, I think the main thing is you want to establish a few specific threats that are going to be running around the tower later on, right? So this is going to be one that we can recognize instantly. We're going to know there's a fake Harley Quinn running around who is dangerous, you know, because we can't just have Anna Vulcan being the only psycho running around that might be a danger to them. So I mean, even if we don't explore her that much, this serves as like, okay, we're setting up at least a cast of a few. Mr. Freeze, obviously, we'd know anyway, but like we established that he's here so that we can use him later in the general story. So I think that's part of it. They run into Anna Vulcan, and Batwoman kind of flashes back briefly as she goes to shake her hand to the night she caught her back in the prelude issue. Yeah. And you know, Kate has to make with the niceties and sort of act interested in Dr. Ware to like get hired. She says that to Oracle because there's a great transition. I actually probably my favorite thing about the whole issue, and part of it's because how much I love just like all these back characters working together, but it's the transition of her walking into the alley and like, going into the sewer, and the conversation's still going, but then she goes into the new base, and it's like, okay, we got all that. And the one bit of speculation I'd offer to suggest that not so much that it'll turn out to be someone important, but that we get more of who this person who is Harley is, that I feel like Nightwing's line where he says, "Did you see her?" Might be a reference to her. Although, admittedly, Kate does say she didn't see her. So
no, I don't think it's a reference to that at all. I think because Nightwing's like, "Oh, did you see her?" To me, felt clear they've got someone undercover as a patient.
Yeah,
and it was like, "Did you see her? Is she okay?" Sort of thing. And in case I didn't see her,
And I'm feeling that might be Huntress because that's the cliffhanger we left on, or so we thought last week. But yeah, but maybe this Harley thing is meant to be a red herring. you know, because we know she's still running around and she's still a member of the Bat family. So at this point,
Oh, you think the twist is going to be that it is actually Harley, but she's pretending to be someone else, pretending to be Harley?
Maybe.
That would be kind of fun, actually. Huh?
Yeah. It's very much, Robert Downey Jr. in Tropic Thunder. So,
but, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it is Huntress. I don't know if I necessarily get that because that was the cliffhanger from last issue, though, because that cliffhanger is kind of unrelated. And
no, but
anyway, to this.
It's related since we saw Huntress seemingly in patient outfit.
Right.
So, and this here, we know that that Nightwing's asking about someone who is a patient.
Right.
My assumption was, okay, it's someone undercover. It makes sense to be Huntress after we saw.
And it's not this
last issue. Right,
and it's not this fake Harley because we know that she sees her.
Yeah.
You know. So.
Yeah, someone else. So yeah, that would have been my guess.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, maybe I'm just reading into the tone, but he sounds concerned, which is why maybe I was thinking it's someone.
A good person. Be concerned about anyone in the Bat family.
Yeah. Well, if it was Babs, I'd get why I'd be like saying it like, yeah, did you see her? Like, she better be okay.
So Babs is sat right there.
Babs is sat, obviously it's not Barbara. Yeah. I'm saying, but Babs would be the one that makes sense. Unless Dick gets really close to someone else in the very close future.
I mean, we know where they're set up right now is kind of the mom and dad of the Bat family with Bruce gone. But I mean, traditionally, Dick also has a history with Helena. So I don't know if that's still intact now.
That's true.
But I don't think that's where they're going.
I didn't read it that way at all. I just, because they're asking, is there any word from Batman? And and he's like, no, nothing. And Dick's like, did you see her? Like, it just, to me, it sounded as a concern. It's like, is she all right? Like,
Yeah. Do you know what it is? I think it's because of the way he's introduced, because he comes out of shadows. So he says it from the shadow. It's almost a very Batman entrance, the way he asks a question from the shadows in the background.
Right.
Yeah.
Which for Dick is, I wouldn't say out of character, but it's definitely more notable for Dick. Whereas Batman would do this every issue, and you wouldn't think twice. It's just Batman.
I think that plays into Matt saying them becoming like the parents of the Bat family.
Yeah.
He's kind of standing in as Batman essentially.
He's a method actor, is what you're saying. He's getting into the role.
Hey, he's done it before. He'll do it again.
Yeah. And then it's after this we go back to the flashback and young Dr. Ware sneaking off with the credit card, and
we do also learn about the mysterious Dr. Ocean as well.
Yeah.
We do hear about Dr. Ocean, who they do ask. I mean, Kate does ask about Dr. Ocean in the facility, when she's talking.
Brushed off.
Yeah, it gets brushed off quite quickly. Like, so it's not Kate, it's Chase who asks about it because she wants to see him.
Right.
She wants to see him. That's right.
But she gets brushed off. So I was like, he's busy.
So Dr. Ocean sounds like he's one of the head therapists or doctors who works there, right? That's what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like he's maybe even above Ware, at least, if not officially, kind of seemingly might be the real brains behind it. I don't know.
Yeah, I this is the sort of issue I read, and I can sense like there's going to be a portion of people who think it's a dull issue because it's not actiony or anything. To me, this was the perfect slow burn, setting the table that works at this part of the story for me. I was really into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a nice next chapter. It does help that the pacing with is weekly, so when there's a little bit of like you said, a slowdown or a lull.
Yeah, if you were waiting for a month for this issue, you might feel a bit different.
Mm-hmm. But that was fine. I want to know what's going up with Ware, and because everything's on the up and up, especially here now.
I actually really appreciate that during most of the stuff at the start, it's just trying to make you feel really sympathetic. So, maybe he is doing this for the right reasons. He saw what happened to him.
But then the ending points of kind of the flip of that, where
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's like, no, screw them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the end of the flashback is basically him saying to his friend, I hate mentally ill people. That's basically what he says.
Yeah,
so,
he says, fixing what's wrong with people like his mum's a waste of time. And it's like, okay, by the end of the issue, it's a completely flipped perspective on what you thought it was going to be doing.
Which does beg the question is, what is he up to then?
Right.
So yeah, it's interesting stuff. And then we have the backup, of course, as well. Continuing this kid who's been left without parents because of the Joker. This issue focuses more on Bruce though, and it's him sort of like coming back bloody and bruised, and Alfred's looking after him, complaining that he's not going to the hospital. He has to stitch him up while he's sitting at the computer.
Complaining that he's not even going to bed.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you know what my favorite thing in the art of this backup, right? It's such a simple little thing, but see when it cuts to where the kid is now at Arkham, and we actually find out like a little bit later it's actually Harleen Quinzel he's talking to, before she became Harley, which makes sense given the time period. But that first panel, like the way she's just kind of cut off at the top of the panel, just to give you the sense that it's his POV and he's looking down, so he's not seeing her completely, is just perfect. Like,
Right.
I got it. I got exactly why it looked out, not framed properly, and it just worked. I was like, genius. Sometimes the simple tricks just work the best. So.
And then the next panel is clearly from Harleen's, because it is
Right.
from a higher angle looking down. Not significantly, obviously they're both still sat down, but it's still framed just slightly looking downwards at.
Yeah, no, it's just really well paced, and it teases the Clay when he goes to the bathroom, like there's clay all on the floor. Bruce is here and Bruce is here specifically to see the kid because he's looking for him. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I love that they have Clayface cleaning, but as he cleans, he's just making a bigger
mopping
mess.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's the question: is he mopping in general, or is he mopping after himself? Like, is he walking backwards with a mop all times?
Right. So, but I do like this. I've never seen as creepy as double mouth Clayface. Right. Like there's the monster mouth talks at the same time as the mouth inside.
Yeah.
And it's very unsettling, and especially looking at the kid's perspective, it makes it that much scarier. Even though, as we know here, like Clayface is just kind of, he's scary looking, but there's a kind heart in there somewhere.
Even going from, like, obviously we know that from the last few years of Clayface is now kind of a good guy, but even this, he doesn't know. He's like he says, I wasn't going to hurt him. He was being kind of nice.
He's very sympathetic. He's actually sitting and just sort of like
hanging out with the kid.
Yeah,
he's letting him like mold things. He's making a little triceratops. Like dinosaurs.
And he's come down to his level.
And Bruce, Bruce and the orderlies kind of react aversely, like, "Oh, you're near the child. You're being dangerous." He's like, "No, I'm just hanging out with the kid. He's fine." So you actually get really sympathetic, and Bruce comes off as a little bit of a dick in this scene. But there is kind of a nice touch here where the kid's scared of him at first because they mentioned that he's wet himself, but this contrast that he's very quickly like become friends with Clayface when everything else when he's seen with Harley was kind of pointing out, and this was brought up last part as well, this idea that he kind of doesn't see a difference between Batman and Joker. He thinks Batman's just as scary and crazy as the Joker. That's kind of what he's getting at earlier, because he calls them just two costumed like freaks or two costumed,
and he says that he doesn't know.
Yeah,
because he describes it, and I was like, no one else is there except Batman. Wait, she's like, wait, do you mean Batman? Is that who you're terrified of?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes and how it might or might not tie into
the fact that Bruce takes it to it's called the Martha Wayne Orphanage, but it's Ma Gunn's. Right, that's Ma Gunn.
Wait, what?
Not necessarily.
It looks like Ma Gunn.
Does it look
last page, top right panel.
I suppose it does kind of look like Ma Gunn.
I mean, maybe I'm way wrong, but immediately I was like, oh, that's Ma Gunn.
I mean,
and I assume that's what this was.
But that I mean, I guess it doesn't have to be, but like I always thought that was like on like near Crime Alley. That
I mean, they could have changed that slightly.
You could have done. I mean, I'll be honest, I never clocked that was like, because she's quite small in the pile, so I never really even give it much thought. I mean, yeah, I guess it could be Ma Gunn.
It looked exactly like Ma Gunn to me. That was my immediate thought. That until you guys have both gone, is it? That I didn't even doubt that it was until then. It was like just I thought it was like a certainty, and now I'm questioning myself.
Because I don't think Ma Gunn was at the Martha Wayne Orphanage, was she?
No, she had.
Why am I just learning who Ma Gunn is?
Ma Gunn is.
It's from Jason Todd's like origin.
Yeah, she ran the home that Jason was kind of sent to, and she had a front that Bruce and Batman thought was, oh, it's this nice little place. It's this little, like, she's helping the kids, and she was actually running a crime ring and turning hardened criminals.
Gotcha.
And but she's been a thing in the in other areas as well. Like, she's come up a few times. And
yeah, my confusion was just why you bringing up Matt Gunn, whereas Matt's like, who the hell's Matt Gunn?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just like, yeah, I'm bringing up Matt Gunn because Matt Gunn's on the panel.
I mean, the sad part of the end here is the Batman's like, it's Bruce talking to him really. But he says that you'll be safe there, I promise, and he's like ominously like watching from the rooftop.
And this is more why I assumed it was Margun's, because it's that ironic of like, oh, you'll be safe there, where clearly, because it's the same with when he dropped Jason off. Oh, you'll be safe.
I mean,
here.
this still doesn't answer the question I was posing, which is how this is maybe or maybe not going to tie in to the main story.
No, that's fair. Again, I'm still leaning towards it's the Nero stuff, but now I'm looking at this and going, oh, is this going to tie in with maybe some of Jason's origin stuff as well? And
it almost seems like the point they're making here is that the kid doesn't see the people in Arkham as monsters, but he sees Batman as a monster, and that Batman and Joker are two sides of the same coin, and that goes with the whole point of Batman and theatrics and whatnot, just through the eyes of a kid, and how these quote monsters are capable of compassion in the right circumstances, and maybe that'll play into whatever Ware's trying to do.
Maybe just on something interesting I've seen here. I'm looking at the last page of it. The story's called House of Gotham.
Mm-hmm.
However, on the front page, on the cover, it's got the backup titled as House of Wayne, and I wonder, was there a weird disconnect there? Like
maybe because it's supposed to be House of Gotham, right?
I would have thought so, but I don't know. It was a weird. I didn't clock it until right this second. I'm just like, that was a weird oversight.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, actually, was really good. It's all a solid chapter. Matt, what are you rating each part?
So I'll give the main story a 7 and the backup a 7.5.
Oh, a bit lower than last issue.
Yeah.
Connor?
I get the main story in 8 and the backup a 7.5.
Okay. I will also go with the straight 8, I think. And then back up. Yeah, I think I'll agree with Connor scores to be here.